The emergency signal was weak, like a whisper on a hurricane planet. Half-broken code squawked through the comms like it had come from a toaster trying to speak its last words. Jace Morrow wasn't even sure it was real until the Nav AI, bless its outdated but overly enthusiastic programming, chirped, asterisk, "Congratulations. You have located a probable crash site or an elaborate hoax. Would you like to die investigating it?" Jace blinked at the blinking red dot on the screen. Sector 7D Unclaimed Space. Officially labeled a debris field, unofficially known as the place salvage crews went when they were either broke or stupid. He, for the record, was both. "Put us on course, Pip," Jace muttered, grabbing the nearest ration bar and a cup of something pretending to be coffee. "Worst case, we find a ghost ship and I finally get possessed by something interesting. May I recommend a mildly aggressive spirit of adventure?" Pip offered cheerfully. By the time his clunker of a ship, asterisk the indecision asterisk, aptly named, wobbled into visual range of the crash, Jace had already started regretting every decision that led him here. From the external cams, the wreck didn't even look like a ship, more like someone had folded a high-tech starcruiser into origami and then stepped on it. The hull was still sparking. That wasn't good. Neither was the plume of what might have been coolant, smoke, or the interstellar equivalent of ghost breath. Jace sighed and zipped up his vacuum suit. Just a quick look. If it's pirates, scream twice. If it's treasure, scream louder. Understood. Initiating Scream Protocol Alpha. Good luck not dying. Inside the wreck, the air was thick with scorched metal and an odd scent that reminded him of cinnamon and broken promises. The corridor walls flickered with dying emergency lights, casting strobing shadows that made his heart rate spike. Not because he was scared, no. He was just breathing with ambition. "Okay, so, totally normal." "Totally fine," he muttered, stepping over what looked suspiciously like alien goo. "Just your average post-disaster walk through a haunted spaceship. What could possibly—" A sound cut through the silence. Not a mechanical whine, not static. A asterisk voice asterisk. A faint, trembling exhale of pain. He followed it on instinct. Years of emergency response training kicked in, overriding the little voice in his head screaming about traps and tentacled space creatures. She was crumpled against the wall of what might have once been a medbay, her body tangled in wires and fractured plating. Silver-blue blood leaked from a gash along her side, glowing faintly in the dim light like starlight trapped in syrup. Her skin had a metallic sheen like living chrome kissed with stardust, and her eyes, when they fluttered open, were nothing short of supernovas. Jace froze. "You're alive." Her mouth opened, but the only sound was a rasp. She looked terrified. Bleeding, alone, and very, very alien, which, for the record, did not appear in any of the first aid manuals he'd read. Okay, he said, slipping into the medic's rhythm, the one part of his life that never failed him. "You're not dying today, all right? At least not while I'm still this handsome." She blinked slowly. He took that as permission. Most of his med kit was a joke. His best stim injector had been used to reheat soup last week. His bandages were technically bootlaces, and his medical drone, model ML9, was currently stuck in what he called its Shakespearean drama mode. "Oh, tragic fate to bleed in zero-G. Let not thine plasma spill like wine upon this forsaken metal tomb. ML9, shut up and stabilize her vitals." "I, captain of broken dreams." Jace worked fast. The bleeding was bad, but the glowing, clotting agent in her blood responded to pressure. Her bones were strange, too flexible, but they weren't shattered. He used a heat sealer to close the largest wound, apologizing with every burn and hiss. She didn't scream. She just stared at him with eyes that said, "I don't understand what you are, but you didn't leave." He carried her back to the indecision himself, muttering under his breath the entire way. "Why is it always me? Why not one of those smug Corim doctors with perfect hair and no student debt? No, it's always the broke guy with a B-grade license and a ship held together with hopes and duct tape." Pip greeted him at the hatch. "Would you like me to prepare the guest cot or the trauma bay?" "Both." They laid her out in the back med corner, the closest thing the ship had to a sick bay. Jace did what he could. Cleaned her wounds, fed her fluids through a repurposed irrigation line, talked to her even when she didn't respond. He figured if she did wake up, it'd be nice to have a voice waiting. She was unconscious for 2 days. In that time, Jace considered at least 15 possible explanations. Escapee from a secret lab, VIP from an undiscovered species, time traveler, possibly a hallucination brought on by expired protein packs. She finally woke up on the 3rd day. He was halfway through reading aloud an ancient paperback about detective androids and murderous toasters when she stirred. Her voice was a whisper. "You stayed." Jace blinked. "Of course I stayed." What kind of jerk patches someone up and just leaves them on a gurney in space? Well, okay, actually I know a guy who'd do that, but I'm not him. She tried to sit up, wobbled, fell back. He leaned over. "Easy, easy. You've been through hell, don't push it." Her eyes locked onto his. The starlight in them hadn't faded. "You saved me." Jace nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Rescuing strange women from exploding ships and then awkwardly talking to them over rehydrated noodles." She was silent a long moment. Then her lips twitched. The first smile, small, hesitant, slid across her face like dawn after a long winter. "I think I owe you my life." Jace raised a brow. "Well, I won't argue, but let's not get carried away. A thank you and maybe a promise not to stab me in my sleep is enough." Her smile widened, and for a moment, despite everything, the weird blood, the alien language still flickering across her skin in iridescent glyphs, the deep and unexplainable calm he felt around her, everything felt oddly safe. He stood and rubbed the back of his neck. "All right, you rest. I'll find you some clothes that don't look like you lost a war with a meat grinder." She blinked slowly. "Clothes? Yeah, you know, fabric, modesty. It's a whole thing I'll explain later." As he turned to leave, she whispered something he couldn't quite catch, something melodic, strange. He looked back. "What was that?" She tilted her head. "Your name, I asked your name." "Oh, it's Jace." "Jace Morrow." She repeated it like it was sacred, and then she spoke her own. "Kiriel." "Nice to meet you, Kiriel," he said, almost believing the words weren't the beginning of a mess he couldn't yet imagine. "Now let's see if you like noodle paste and old Earth movies, because that's about all I've got to offer." She smiled again, and somewhere deep in the black something ancient stirred. 3 years, 7 near-death experiences, and 1 deeply traumatizing dinner with a sentient fungus later. Jace had mostly convinced himself that the alien girl with glowing blood and unsettlingly honest eyes had been a strange blip in his career. A one-time rescue. A cosmic accident wrapped in silver skin and mystery. People didn't just show up out of nowhere, get saved, smile at you like you'd rewritten their galaxy, and then vanish again like a well-mannered ghost. Not unless they were plotting revenge or were figments of your imagination. And Jace hadn't been hallucinating since he quit chewing recycled caffeine gum. Still, every so often, he caught himself glancing at the guest bunk, the one that still had faint traces of crystalline shimmer in the bedsheets. Pip once asked if he was grieving a failed romance or haunted by space mold. "Neither," Jace had muttered, reprogramming the ship's coffee dispenser to stop insulting his life choices. "I just don't like unanswered questions." Now halfway through an engine recalibration on Europa's junk side, where the air was thin and the customer service thinner, he was on his back, elbow-deep in a power conduit, when someone knocked on his hatch. Not dinged asterisk, not asterisk pinged asterisk, not sent a friendly AI message with their credentials and a 3-point plan for not being a murderer. A knock. "Pip," Jace called. "Yes, O ye of questionable sanity. Did I schedule an appointment with a lunatic? You don't keep a calendar, remember? You said structure stifles your creativity." Grumbling, he wiped his hands on a rag that was once white in a past life and hit the manual hatch release. The door hissed, sighed, and slid open. She stood there, taller. Armor that looked grown rather than forged clung to her like a second skin, pulsing faintly with bioluminescent veins. Her hair had changed, now a darker silver, pulled back in an elaborate twist that probably held at least 1 hidden blade. A weapon was slung across her back, humming quietly like it had opinions, and in her arms she held a small potted plant, a cactus with teeth. "Kiriel," Jace breathed. "You're real." She blinked once, then smiled. "Hello, Jace Morrow. I have returned. You brought a plant. It is a asterisk Kelvora asterisk, a traditional ovenari offering symbolizing eternal devotion, soul bonding, and occasional mild digestion of small mammals." The cactus hissed softly. "That's very thoughtful." She stepped forward like she'd never left, brushed past him like she belonged, and set the plant gently on the dining console. "I see you have not changed the color scheme," she said, glancing around the cramped, grease-stained interior of asterisk, the indecision asterisk. "Some of us don't grow glow armor and vanish into the cosmos." "I had business," she said, "and an oath to prepare." Jace rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, about that, you kind of disappeared after I saved your life." "I did not disappear. I returned to my people. There were rituals, obligations, a brief period of legal cloning conflict, very time-consuming." "Cloning, of course, naturally." She turned toward him, those impossible eyes scanning his face. I did not forget. The moment you pulled me from death, you forged a bond, a asterisk Kurulvesh. That sounds ominous. It translates roughly to the tether of heart and breath forged by the sacred debt of rescue, blessed by blood, honored beyond death. Jace stared. Okay, I understood about 6 words in there. It means we are linked, she said, like it explained anything. For life. Wait, he held up a hand. You mean because I saved you, we're what, space married? No. Marriage is a human social construct involving legal contracts and awkward parties. Esh is deeper. It is soul resonance, eternal loyalty, devotion through fire, memory, and laundry. Laundry. She hesitated. The last part may not translate well. Pip, who had been suspiciously quiet, finally spoke. Oh boy, someone got a girlfriend. I do not believe I qualify under that classification, Kirill said thoughtfully. But I belong to him, fully, without doubt. Jace sputtered. Whoa, no one belongs to anyone. That's not how we do things here. She looked mildly confused. You saved my life. That makes you the keeper of my oath. I have trained, returned, and prepared. I am yours. Jace turned to Pip. Help me, I'm hallucinating again, right? Nope, this is real and adorable and slightly terrifying. Jace turned back to her. Kirill, you don't owe me anything. I didn't save you to get something out of it. I do that kind of thing. That is why I chose you, she said softly. Jace opened his mouth, closed it, stared at the cactus, which was now slowly trying to bite a spoon. Okay, look, he said, pacing in the 2 feet of open floor the ship allowed. Let's take this one step at a time. You're here now, great, fine, weird, but fine. But we can't just leap into cosmic soul bonding. I have a routine, I have responsibilities, I have mold I've been meaning to clean. I am willing to learn, she said, of your customs, your boundaries, your planet's obsession with fermented dairy. Jace paused. You mean cheese? She nodded gravely. It disturbs me and intrigues me. Right, okay, so what now? She stepped forward, placed a hand over her chest, then over his. Now we begin. The moment her palm touched his shirt, his skin buzzed like a soft pulse echoing from the core of her hand into his ribs. It wasn't painful. It was warm, steady, grounding, and slightly alarming. Okay, he whispered. Okay, but you better not snore. I do not, she said. Unless I am dreaming of meteoric descent. That's specific. I have survived many crashes. And just like that, she sat at the console like it was hers, examined the cactus with a gentle hum, and began reorganizing his spice rack, which until now had been made entirely of hot sauce packets and regret. Jay stood there, speechless, watching the universe tilt slightly on its axis. Pip, he finally muttered. Yes, did my life just get significantly more complicated? Absolutely. Would you like to run a diagnostic on your emotional stability? No, I'd like a drink. Hot or fermented. Surprise me. Kirill insisted on accompanying Jace everywhere. Not in the casual, let's get coffee and awkwardly bump elbows while we flirt kind of way. But in the deeply unsettling, if you enter the waste processing bay without me, I shall assume you've been abducted and initiate orbital retaliation sort of way. He discovered this on day 2 of what was rapidly becoming the strangest domestic cohabitation of his life. Okay, Jace said, holding up a hydrospanner with the defeated look of a man trying to change a fuel filter while being watched by an alien warrior in ceremonial armor. This right here is a very boring, very routine maintenance check. Kirill leaned in, but what if the pump resists? It's a asterisk pump, not a predator. Deception can take many forms. I will stand ready. You're making it nervous. It does not appear sentient. It's not, but I am, and you're making me nervous. She tilted her head. You often speak in tones suggesting threat, yet your heartbeat remains consistent. Fascinating. Jace sighed and muttered to himself while tightening the filtration bolts. Nothing says romance like being observed like a frog in a science fair. Kirill took a step back but did not leave. Instead, she began assembling something from spare wire and an empty ration tray. When he finally turned to ask what she was doing, she held up the contraption proudly. It's a motion-triggered defense alert system calibrated to your biometrics, she said. It screams when you're in danger. It screams? She nodded. In your voice, I recorded it while you were talking in your sleep. Also, you should discuss your dream about fighting with a chair. Wait, how long have you been recording me? Only for your protection. Jace stared at her, wondering at what point in his life this became normal. Later that day, they hit the market ring of Galactic station for parts, and ideally, a few hours of not being emotionally outmaneuvered by someone with 17 words for loyalty and 0 understanding of social subtlety. Kirill wore what Jace had loosely defined as casual attire. In her case, this involved an iridescent cloak stitched from what she claimed were the molted skins of bioluminescent sky snakes and boots made from polymer scalehide that hummed slightly when they touched metal. "You're gonna blend right in," Jace muttered as they stepped off the ship. "Stealth is not my function. Good to know. I'll just stand here and absorb the social consequences." The market was chaos as always. Noise, neon, haggling in 17 languages, only 3 of which were polite. And a vendor who tried to sell Jace an emotionally intuitive sandwich that changed flavor depending on your mood. Kirill inspected it and declared it philosophically irresponsible. It was halfway through haggling with a particularly grumpy mechanic over a flux inverter that things got weird. Weirder. A sharp, metallic asterisk ping echoed from across the plaza. Jace turned in time to see a figure watching them from the upper walkway, tall, cloaked, with a cybernetic eye that flickered red when it locked onto Kirill. The figure vanished before he could say anything. Kirill tensed. "You know that guy?" Jace asked. She didn't answer at first. Her gaze stayed on the empty catwalk. Then, "It may be someone from before. From the cloning conflict, the crash, or the part where you promised eternal loyalty to a guy living out of a flying toolbox." "Unclear," she admitted. "But we should return, immediately." They made it halfway back to the ship before the attack. 2 figures stepped from the shadows near Dock 14, both armored, both fast. Kirill moved even faster. The first went down with a sharp crack and a blur of her elbow. The second drew a plasma blade. Jace did the only thing he could. He threw a crate of fruit at the guy. To his surprise, it worked. To his dismay, the fruit in question was Blornga asterisk, a notoriously sticky substance that emitted a high-pitched whine when bruised. The entire dock echoed with the sound of screaming citrus. As Kirill pinned the second attacker and held a glowing blade just beneath his chin, Jace panted beside her, juice dripping down his arm. "I want you to know," he said, "this was not how I imagined running into someone you knew. They are not acquaintances, they are messengers. Friendly ones? Unlikely. He's wearing a clasp with the insignia of the Ovenari bloodword. They are not in the habit of sending warm greetings." Jace crouched and yanked off the attacker's hood. The man beneath had skin like burnished iron and one mechanical eye, now flickering with static. "You are not safe," the attacker hissed. "She is not what you think. She's a former patient with poor impulse control and a love of dramatic entrances," Jace replied. "I know exactly what I'm dealing with." The attacker bared his teeth. "Her bond is not a gift, it is a key." "Yeah, well," Jace said, standing and wiping fruit goo off his pants. "So's my locker pass, you don't see me threatening people about it." Kirill's blade pulsed brighter. "Who sent you?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he bit down hard on something in his mouth. His eye went dark, his body stilled. "Did he just self-terminate?" Jace asked, appalled. Kirill rose slowly. "Yes, they are not meant to be captured. You know, when I imagined having a mysterious alien girlfriend, bondmate, I didn't expect it to involve assassination attempts and fruit-based warfare." Kirill looked thoughtful. "You handled yourself well." The Blornga was inspired. "I was aiming for his head. Even better." They stood in silence for a moment as Pip buzzed over the comm. "Everything all right out there?" Sensors just picked up hostile signatures and an anomalous fruit-based sonic discharge. "We're fine," Jace said. "Just making enemies and disappointing fruit vendors." Back on the ship, he slumped into the pilot's chair while Kirill cleaned her blade with a cloth she pulled from some hidden pocket that Jace swore did not exist 20 minutes ago. "They'll keep coming, won't they?" he asked. "Yes. And you're not gonna leave." "No," he sighed. "Guess that means we're in this together." She sat beside him. "You saved me, Jace Morrow. You carry my oath. That means wherever you go, I go. Even if we're being hunted by militant blood cults. Especially then." Jace stared out the viewport as the stars twinkled, indifferent to the growing mess his life had become. "Can I at least sleep in tomorrow?" "No. I'm teaching you hand-to-hand combat." He groaned. She smiled. Kirill did not believe in breakfast. Jace found this out the hard way on day 5 when she announced that mornings were for purging one's weaknesses through combat and not, as he had foolishly hoped, for toast and existential dread over rehydrated eggs. "Come," she said, standing in the cargo bay with her training gear on, an intimidating ensemble of glowing mesh and attitude. "Today we perfect the art of joint dislocation. Can I finish my coffee first?" Jace asked, cradling his steaming cup like it was the last warm thing in the universe. "Pain will awaken you faster. So will caffeine, and it doesn't involve my shoulder being introduced to my kneecap. She gave him a look that was either disappointment or affection. It was hard to tell with Kirill. Her expressions operated on a spectrum that ranged from "I will fight for you" to "I will fight you" lovingly. 10 minutes later, Jace was flat on his back, groaning, while Kirill stood above him, holding a croissant she'd apparently hidden in her armor. "You did have breakfast," he accused. "For after the training, as reward. I demand a rematch. This time I get a pastry. You must earn it through pain. I am * in pain. Then you are halfway there." They paused when Pip chimed in. "Incoming transmission from local authorities." Or someone pretending to be them. Their encryption has all the elegance of a drunk space ferret. "Patch it through," Jace said, sitting up with a wince. The hollow projector flickered, revealing a portly man in a tight uniform that looked like it had been tailored during a gravity malfunction. His mustache twitched as he spoke. "This is Commander Helson of the Europa Outpost. Is this the vessel * Indecision?" "Depends," Jace said. "Is this about the fruit incident?" The man blinked. "What fruit incident?" "Nothing," Jace said quickly. "Yes, this is the * Indecision *. What can we do for you, Commander?" "There's been an anomaly. A ship crashed just beyond the outpost's ridge. No official transponder. High-energy readings. We're stretched thin. Would you be willing to investigate?" Jace glanced at Kirill. Her expression had shifted, calm but alert, like a storm preparing taxes. "Define anomaly," Jace said. "The kind that makes our sensors nervous and our engineers quit mid-shift." "Great," Jace muttered. "We'll check it out." They prepped the skimmer in silence, though Kirill added 3 extra weapons to her belt without comment. "I'm just saying," Jace said as he powered up the thrusters, "maybe next time we let someone else poke the mysterious space crash. There's probably a rule about this." "There is," she said, "but I have never obeyed it." The site was a twisted knot of metal and scorched rock, half buried in Europa's icy crust. The ship, or what was left of it, was of unfamiliar make, its design angular and slightly organic, like it had grown itself rather than been built. Jace approached cautiously, scanner in one hand and a snack bar in the other. "Signals dead. No life signs, no heat signature, just vibes." "Dark technology," Kirill said. "From the fringe systems, it feeds on entropy." "That sounds deeply unpleasant. It is considered impolite to build one within 200 parsecs of civilized space. Kind of like karaoke bars." They circled the wreck. Kirill touched one of the hull panels and it hissed beneath her fingers. She jerked back. "It remembers me." Jace squinted. "You knew this ship?" "Not exactly, but I knew the minds that built it." "Were they fond of creepy architecture and ominous color schemes?" "They believed emotion was weakness. They created machines that siphoned memory and rewrote loyalty." Jace stared at her. "Are we talking metaphorical memory siphoning, or—" The wreck groaned. They both turned. The memory spire turned out to be less spire and more abandoned tower of cosmic trauma sitting politely in the middle of an asteroid belt. Which, in Jace's professional opinion, was a terrible place to leave anything memory-related, unless your goal was to attract exactly the kind of nonsense they'd just dealt with on Europa. Pip kept rerouting them to avoid collision with drifting debris, most of which had strong opinions about physics, and Kirill had been quiet the whole ride, which made Jace nervous. Quiet from Kirill meant something was deeply, horrendously, irrevocably important. "So," Jace said as he strapped into the co-pilot's seat and watched a spiral-shaped satellite drift lazily past the viewport. "On a scale from casual recon to nightmare brain trap, how bad is this place?" Kirill didn't look up. The memory spire was built by the Haleri conquered. They believed every experience, thought, and emotion held a shape, one that could be stored, recalled, and weaponized. "Okay, that's charming. It is outlawed in 8 sectors. I'm starting to think * you are outlawed in 8 sectors. 9. One revoked my ban after I fixed their orbital sewage grid. Remind me to never disrespect you again." The spire was anchored to a freestanding chunk of rock, rotating slow and sad like a forgotten lighthouse. Its hull was carved with ancient code and lined with interface nodes shaped like open hands. As Jace and Kirill docked, Pip tried to scan for life signs and was immediately offended by what it found. "This station just tried to read my core memory files, without dinner or even a basic security handshake." "Rude, can it do that?" Jace asked. "I've encrypted everything under 6 layers of sarcasm and firewall. Let's see it handle * that." They entered through the airlock cautiously. The lights flickered, and the floor made a soft chiming sound when they walked, which was either aesthetic or a feature of deeply repressed horror. Inside, the corridors were lined with hexagonal panels. Occasionally, one would shimmer and display a face, some human, some not, trapped in mid-expression. Laughing, crying, screaming, all frozen like digital fossils, Jace cleared his throat. So, this doesn't scream healthy emotional processing. The Halari believed pain gave memories their sharpest edge. I believe in therapy and low-sodium snacks, personally. As they moved deeper, a voice echoed overhead, genderless, calm. Welcome, bonded, you have returned. Kirill stopped. Jace squinted. Okay, no, absolutely not. You did asterisk not used to live here. Not live, she said softly. Train. The Spire's AI was apparently still functional and delighted. Query. Do you wish to recover archived experience set? Here V3 Dusk. Accessing linked unit. Morrow JACE probable stabilizer. Emotional resonance score 74.3%. Jace stepped back. Wait, it scanned asterisk me without consent. Kirill glanced at him. That is a high resonance score. I don't know whether to be flattered or deeply violated. The AI continued, completely unbothered. Initiating shared immersion. Do not resist the interface. If disorientation or mild philosophical nausea occurs, seek assistance from your bonded guide. Mild philosophical nausea? Jace asked, but the floor was already shifting. Reality fractured, not painfully, but like someone had taken his brain, held it up to the light, and decided it needed more dramatic contrast. He was suddenly standing in a field, under twin suns, wearing someone else's uniform. He turned. Kirill was beside him, no armor, just a sleek uniform marked with a crest he didn't recognize. She looked younger, sharper, and angry. Don't you asterisk see what they're doing? She demanded to someone invisible. I see what you're asterisk doing, another voice replied. Jace turned and saw a group of Ovanari all looking like they were auditioning for a very serious opera. You're bonding, again. Outside protocol, Kirill spat, because protocol is a cage. I asterisk like asterisk protocol, Jace said to no one in particular. It tells me when to eat lunch. Then it clicked, this wasn't a memory of her past. It was a memory of someone else's past, projected through her. Or maybe it was asterisk her. Jace watched as the scene played out, Kirill arguing fiercely, passionately, defending something he couldn't fully grasp, something about autonomy, choice, the right to feel. You knew all this? He whispered as the field faded around them and turned into another scene, a laboratory. The original Kirill stood in a stasis pod, her body suspended in shimmering blue fluid. She looked like a weapon, a poem. A question no one wanted answered. I was grown to serve, Kirill said beside him, but I chose not to. Jace glanced at her. Did you ever think they'd let you? No, that is why I left, why I fought. The room shifted again. Now it was dark, a burning corridor, screams in the distance. The same stasis pod shattered, blood glowing on the walls, a hand reaching out, his hand from 5 years ago. Jace stepped forward as the projection version of himself lifted her up, whispering reassurances. The image blurred, rewound, paused. Shared bond confirmed, the AI intoned. Emotive loop complete. And just like that, they were back in the corridor. The panels were silent now. Jace leaned against the wall, panting. Okay, first of all, that was way too much character development for one afternoon. Kirill didn't answer. He looked over, she was staring at a panel, one showing a face, her own, younger, frightened. I remember now, she said. This place stored pieces of me, not just memories, fears, doubts. I buried them. And now, I will reclaim them. And burn this place clean. Please say that metaphorically. She placed her hand on a node, it lit up, bright, blinding. Then every panel on the spire burst in a cascade of collapsing code, like glass shattering in reverse. Okay, I'm gonna file that under not metaphorical, Jace muttered as alarms began to blare. They ran. The spire behind them screamed like a dying god who had just realized it forgot to back up its files. Once they were back on the asterisk indecision asterisk, Pip launched them before they even finished buckling in. May I ask if destroying ancient psychic memory fortresses is going to be a recurring thing now? Only on Thursdays, Jace muttered. Kirill sat beside him, eyes closed, steady. You okay? He asked. I recovered something lost, she said. A memory, a truth, and a choice. Was the choice never take me anywhere weird again? No, she said. The choice was asterisk you. Jace had never been chased by a bureaucracy before. Pirates, sure. Bounty hunters, regrettably, yes. One time, a sentient omelet had tried to strangle him in a diner on Ganymede, but that was technically culinary miscommunication. This was new. You're telling me, Jace said, blinking at the official-looking transmission floating above the console. That we're being pursued by a legal envoy. Kirill nodded calmly as she tightened the straps on her boots, which he was 80% sure contained at least one retractable weapon and possibly a sandwich compartment. They are called the Conclave of Echoed Oaths. They oversee spiritual contracts, bonding laws, and violations of interspecies oath structures. Jace stared. So, intergalactic marriage police? They do not enforce marriage. They enforce intent. Well, that's somehow worse. Pip chimed in. They have filed a Class 7 sovereign entanglement dispute against you, Jace. It cites emotional possession of a culturally protected oath-bearer without proper registration, declaration, or ceremonial interpretive dance. I don't even dance. Kirill tilted her head. That part is optional. Great, that's what I needed, a cosmic legal summons and a dance-off. They were en route to a neutral mediation station called Dural 9, where, according to Pip, disputes are settled with bureaucracy, logic puzzles, and passive-aggressive snacks. Jace had tried to suggest skipping the station entirely, but that was vetoed by Kirill, who insisted on facing the matter honorably. And honorably, in this case, meant arriving on a floating conference moon shaped like an egg. The waiting room was suspiciously cozy. Plush chairs, ambience music that sounded like whales humming their resumes, a table with individually wrapped snacks labeled Compliance Bites. Jace unwrapped one and immediately regretted it. It tasted like chalk and unresolved childhood trauma. A hologram appeared, tall, angular, wearing glasses that were probably coded in. Mr. Morrow and Kirill of Ashra. You are here to address an illegal tethering claim under Ovanari Ethical Statute 49C, subsection binding without mutual disclosure. I didn't bind anything, Jace said. I just pulled someone out of a wreckage and tried not to get emotionally mangled along the way. The emotional mangling is precisely the issue, the hologram said. You see, under Ovanari doctrine, saving someone during a threshold crisis initiates latent soul resonance encoding unless negated by ritual nullification. Did you perform any nullification rites? I gave her a blanket and a cup of soup. The hologram blinked. That is, regrettably, listed as one of the more intimate gestures in their cultural annex. Kirill stepped forward. He did not know. He cannot be judged for ignorance. Intent supersedes ignorance when bonding patterns are detected, the hologram replied. Our scans indicate elevated resonance fields between you, along with a 92% emotional imprint saturation on both ends. Okay, that feels like a lot of numbers about my feelings, Jace said. Is there a privacy law here? Anyone? You must either formalize the bond under Ovanari right or undergo resonance dissolution. Jace turned to Kirill. What's resonance dissolution? You enter the oral chamber, face your truths, and sever the connection through psychic rupture. That sounds like a spa treatment designed by sad poets. It often results in memory loss, personality fragmentation, and minor time displacement. I stand by my metaphor. The hologram flickered slightly. You have one cycle to choose. Otherwise, we will rule in favor of mandated disconnection. Jace muttered something about bureaucracy being the real villain of the universe and sat heavily in the nearest chair. After the envoy left, he stared at the ceiling. So, we've got 24 hours to either officially soul bond or unbond, with side effects that sound like a bad breakup mixed with a sci-fi reboot. Kirill sat beside him. You do not have to choose me. That's not what this is about. She looked at him calm and still. Then what is it? It's about the fact that I didn't ask for any of this, but I also didn't expect it to matter this much. You, this bond, the cactus with teeth, it all means something now. I don't know how or why, but I don't want to erase it like it was just some cosmic paperwork glitch. Kirill was quiet. Then, the ceremony is simple, a vow, a gift, and a shared memory encoded into crystal. Jace blinked. I'm not carrying any memory crystals. I barely carry socks. I brought one, she said, pulling a small translucent shard from her belt. Of course you did. That night in a quiet room provided by the mediation staff, which included an unnerving holographic pillow that whispered, "Compliance is comfort, asterisk." Jace stared at the memory crystal, turning it over in his hands. Do I actually get to say no? He asked, breaking the silence. Kirill looked up. Yes, I will still walk beside you. I will still fight for you. The oath was never about possession. It is about asterisk willingness. Jace considered that. Then he grinned. You always do this. Say something deeply moving and then just sit there like you didn't drop an emotional grenade. I do not know what kind of grenade that is. The best kind. The kind that makes you feel like an idiot and a poet at the same time. He held the crystal up. Let's do it. She nodded once. They each pressed a finger to the surface. It glowed softly, then began to pulse, matching the beat of their hearts. "Name your truth," Kirill said. Jace took a breath. "You make me feel like I matter, like I'm part of something bigger than my bad jokes and weird luck. That's my truth." Her voice was steady. "You saw me as more than what I was built to be. You called me human when I had no name. That is mine." The crystal sealed, flashed once, and went still. Pip's voice came through the comms. "Congratulations. You've confused every legal system within 3 parsecs. Also, the cactus ate one of the compliance pillows." Jace leaned back, exhausted but weirdly peaceful. "Good, I hated that thing." Kirill tilted her head. "We are officially bonded?" Jace nodded. "Yep, which means we probably just made a lot of very dangerous people very annoyed." "Excellent," she said. "I was getting bored." He laughed long and loud. For once, it didn't sound like someone trying to hide something. The next morning, Jace awoke to the unmistakable sound of something heavy crashing in the galley. Not the normal sort of crashing, either, not the "oops, I dropped the protein griddle" kind. This was the kind of sound that came with smoke, mild panic, and the smell of electrical regret. He stumbled out of his bunk, still wearing one boot and a shirt with the phrase, "I void warranties professionally," printed across the chest, and found Kirill standing calmly next to a half-melted food synthesizer and what appeared to be the exploded remains of a toaster. "I attempted to make celebratory waffles," she said without looking at him. "The appliance resisted." "Did it scream?" Jace asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Only once." "Great, we're now at war with breakfast, again." She turned toward him, holding a singed plate with something vaguely waffle-shaped. "You may still consume this one. It is only structurally compromised." He took the plate, sniffed it, then took a bite. It tasted like optimism, carbon, and possibly battery acid. "Perfect," he lied. "Absolutely nailed it." Pip's voice crackled through the intercom. "Good morning, bonded fools. You have 12 new messages, 2 incoming pings from anonymous sources, and 1 unsolicited gift that may or may not contain microscopic surveillance bees." Jace swallowed carefully. "Let's start with the gift." "Confirmed." Scanning for bees now. Kirill was already moving to the console, reading the alert logs. The pings came from a system on the fringe. Designation, Calyx Drift. No known settlements, no trade routes, just silence. "Let me guess," Jace said. "You've been there before, and it ended badly." "I have not been there, but someone wants us to go." "What kind of someone?" "The kind who knows the resonance pattern embedded in our memory crystal." Jace blinked. "Wait, someone accessed our bonding crystal. It was intercepted and duplicated. See, this is why I don't store feelings in glowing rocks." She touched the panel, pulling up the message. It was a single pulse of data, then a phrase, burned into the transmission field like graffiti on a clean wall. "Come see what you've become." Jace frowned. "That's either a threat or the worst marketing campaign I've ever seen." Kirill looked almost thoughtful. "It is a challenge. It's a trap, perhaps. So we're going?" "Yes." He sighed and finished the waffle. "Of course we are." The journey to the Calyx Drift took 12 hours and 4 increasingly unhinged games of Astralier Asterisk, a card game invented by Pip that no one had fully learned to win. Kirill played with unnerving precision. Jace relied on bluffing and wild, baseless confidence. "Do you even know what a null queen does?" Kirill asked, eyeing his final move. "No, but I named her Cynthia and I feel emotionally invested in her success." "You're losing." "Cynthia never loses, she just delays triumph." When they dropped out of hypershift, the drift greeted them with a silence that wasn't quite empty. It was the kind of silence that hummed under your skin, like something was watching, judging, possibly writing bad poetry about your presence. The coordinates led to a floating installation, cylindrical, ancient, held together with gravity locks and pure stubbornness. There were no signals, no lights, no obvious entrances. Just a pulsing energy signature that matched the exact frequency of their shared bond. "Okay," Jace said. "We're officially being lured into an abandoned structure in deep space by someone obsessed with our relationship." Romantic. That's one word for it. They docked. The interior was cold and dim, like stepping into a forgotten thought. The walls pulsed faintly with resonance patterns, not code, not light, but emotion turned into architecture. "It's built from memory," Kirill whispered. "I really miss chairs that don't whisper my feelings back to me," Jace muttered. As they moved deeper, projections flickered around them, moments from their past, Jace saving Kirill. Kirill standing over him during that fight on Acanthus 4. Him laughing at something stupid she'd said about cheese. "You know," Jace said, trying not to feel weird about watching himself like a third-party viewer of his own rom-com. This place is either a stalker temple or the universe's weirdest scrapbook. They reached the core chamber. It opened without prompting. Inside, standing perfectly still in the center of a mirrored sphere, was a copy of Kirill, not a recording, not a memory. A full, breathing, eyes-glowing, eerie-smiling version of her, except this one was dressed in battle regalia, dark and twisted, and gave off the emotional warmth of a tax audit. "Well," Jace said, "that's new." The second Kirill spoke, her voice was almost identical, almost, colder, sharp enough to cut thought. "You abandoned your potential." Kirill stepped forward, calm and still. "You are not me. I am what you refused to become. I accepted what they offered, perfection, control, power without burden. Power without compassion is emptiness in armor. That's poetic." The copy turned toward Jace. "And you are the anomaly, the interference, the weakness." Jace raised a hand. "That's me, Jace Morrow, professional weakness, trademark pending. You bonded with her, anchored her, made her forget what she was meant to do." "I made her laugh," he said. "I made her try waffles. I made her choose. You can't make someone into a weapon and expect them to stay sharp forever." The copy blinked. For a moment it almost looked uncertain, then it lunged. Kirill met herself mid-leap. They clashed not with fists, not entirely, with light, with memory, with the resonance of every path not taken, every bond not formed, every version of Kirill that could have been. Jace watched, stunned, helpless, as two beings locked in mirrored fury fought through memory echoes. Rooms shattered around them into forgotten moments. A laugh, a scream, the humming silence of deep space. Then Kirill stood, blood on her lip, energy in her palm. "I choose this," she said. She touched her other self's chest. The mirror Kirill burst into light. Silence fell. Jace ran to her. "Are you?" "I am whole," she said. At last, the installation began to crack, the resonance collapsing in on itself. They ran. Back on the ship, breathless, bruised, possibly missing several legal warranties, they collapsed into the cockpit chairs. Pip's voice was unusually gentle. "So, how was therapy?" Jace groaned. It was full of metaphors and punching. "Effective, then?" He looked at Kirill. "Did that fix things?" "No," she said. "But it freed me to begin again." He leaned back. "Good. Because we've got like 7 more transmissions and at least 1 complaint from the sentient cactus." "Did it eat another pillow?" "It started demanding pillows." Kirill smiled, and the stars spun on. Jace woke up in a supply closet. To be fair, it had a pillow, a thermal blanket, and a small plaque that read emergency nap pod certified for existential recovery. So it wasn't the worst place he'd ever regained consciousness. That honor belonged to a karaoke bar on Vorta's 3, but that was a story he refused to tell unless bribed with high-quality chocolate and plausible deniability. He sat up, groaning, and found Kirill already standing outside the door, arms folded, holding 2 mugs of something that smelled suspiciously like victory and recycled cinnamon. "You slept for 9 hours, she said, offering him a mug. "That is nearly impressive. I like that you say that like you're not secretly concerned. I am openly concerned. But I also wanted to see if you'd snore loud enough to disarm the hallway motion sensors again." He took a sip. "Did I?" "Yes, you set off the security drone. It short-circuited trying to classify your vocal pattern." He grinned, settling beside her on the floor outside the closet. "I have layers. Like a cake," she said. "Like an onion. Cakes are better." They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the ship steady around them, distant stars crawling slowly across the viewport. Pip was running diagnostics. The sentient cactus was asleep, thankfully. The ship hadn't been attacked, intercepted, or forcefully invited to a memory duel in at least 17 hours. Peace was still new. It made Jace suspicious. "So," he said, "where does this leave us?" Kirill didn't answer immediately. She looked out at the stars like they might offer a hint. "The Conclave has rescinded their claim. Your declaration and the successful sealing of our bond crystal disrupted their precedent. They are updating their legal doctrine." "Great, I'm a footnote in space law." "An influential one," she said. "Also, Pip is now technically registered as a spiritual mediator and is legally allowed to officiate Ovenari vow renewals." "I require a sash," Pip added over the comm, solemnly. "I'll get you one embroidered with intergalactic love bot," Jace said. "It better sparkle." Kirill tilted her head. "You joke more now." Jace took another sip of his drink. "I guess I do." "You feel different." "I am *different, he said, a little surprised to admit it. I mean, I used to just bounce from job to job, pretending I was a freelancer when I was mostly just drifting. Then you crash-landed into my life, literally, and now I'm bonded, hunted, officially registered in a metaphysical relationship, and legally responsible for a cactus with a taste for upholstery. You are not drifting anymore. No, he said. No, I'm really not. They made a list that afternoon, a list of things that had changed. Under Jace, it read, knows how to disable a quantum memory trap. Can fight, sort of. Believes in something, or at least someone. Woke up once thinking about someone else before himself. Didn't immediately regret it. Under Kirill, it read, smiles more. Understands sarcasm. Willingly slept in a bunk made of synthetic fluff and despair. Chose her own path. Keeps a small, terrible drawing Jace made of her in her armor. She says it's for strategic reasons. No one believes her. The messages that had piled up over the last few days were mostly cleanup. One from the station on Europa, thanking them for resolving an unsanctioned temporal artifact without excessive civilian vaporization. Another from Commander Helson, offering Jace an honorary role in their emergency rescue guild, which he declined because he refused to wear uniforms with more than 3 buttons. And one from a hidden relay, unsigned, encrypted, but unmistakably from someone who once tried to control Kirill. You made your choice. We see you now. There will be consequences. Jace read it twice, snorted, and deleted it. Kirill looked at him. You are not afraid?